Hello and welcome to Re-enthused. It's the 1990s and the home console market is just hotting up, and after narrowly avoiding being hit by the worst of it during the games computer crash, the home computer market in the UK is starting to feel the pinch. So Amstrad, led by Alan Sugar, decides to follow the old adage, if you can't beat them, join them, and releases the GX4000 to the waiting market. And here it is. This is the GX4000 in its rather wonderful spaceship styling. I know it's a little bit divisive, but I like it. I think it's a nice, simple design. Yeah, it's a nice size, and I guess I like the curves. It's a nice machine. It's a Z80 based console running at 4 MHz with 64K of memory and 16K of video memory. It's based on Amstrad's 64K Plus model computer, the later improved version of their home computers. It was introduced in September 1990 and discontinued less than a year later after selling around 15,000 units. Now that sales figure is a bit of a bone of contention though. I know a few people don't fully agree with it. Some claim it must have sold more because the sheer amount available. And it's true, if you go on eBay and such like and other auctions, you will find a few of them. A lot of them boxed as well. I suspect that the difference is that the 15,000 is the official figure released, but I don't think that's including all of the bargain basement sales that happened afterwards, because Amstrad didn't take back a lot of stock. Sometimes when a product is either recalled or ends it run early, the supplier will buy stock back or take it back if it's on a per sale basis. And that didn't happen with a lot of these, so I suspect retailers were kind of just dumping them on the market, and Amstrad didn't actually include that in the official sales figures, which kind of makes a lot of sense. Because of its poor sales, publishers abandoned the platform early, especially damning when you consider that most of the kind of unreleased games were just going to be ports from the home computers anyway, and that was a fairly simple job. In the end, 27 games were released, including the pack-in title Burning Rubber. The quality of the games varies wildly, with Robocop 2, Pang, Plotting, Navy Seals, Switchblade, and Burning Rubber considered to be the cream of the bunch. Now, we'll get to those games later, obviously. So we'll just have a little look at the console itself. Like I say, I really do like the styling. Obviously, the cartridge with its protective dust doors there. That's the big old on-off switch, which does lock one of the doors of that to stop you from trying to put a cartridge in early. That's at least one safety measure they took. We'll get to that in a minute. There's a pause button here. There isn't one on the actual controller. So if I bring the controller over. The controller itself, we'll go for the controller, why not? The controller itself, nice simple affair. It looks like it's heavily based on the NES and Master System controllers. It's an okay D-pad, buttons are alright as well. It's not a bad controller all in all. There's no pause button or start and stop on there at all. So the big pause button on the front there, but that's also similar to what Sega did as well. Power LED, obviously. Let's look at the front first. Why not? The front's quite interesting in of itself. So there's an RJ11 socket here, and this was used for it was going to be used for peripherals, but mostly it was used for a light gun. A third-party light gun was released. Came with a couple of games, Skeet Shooter and The Enforcer, but those were basically the only games that made real use of it. Two normal connected Atari-style joystick connectors, and an analog port in the middle, which is possibly the most interesting part of it, actually, the front. It's compatible with IBM PC analog joysticks. Now, it was basically unused in software, although there are a few games that seem to pay some use to it, especially actual CPC games rather than GX4000 ones. But it was there and available as a peripheral, and a headphone socket there, so you can get sound out of headphones. So on the back, so we have two power holes. So this is going to use some description. This is quite an important part of this because it also feeds into later on as part of the reason why the GX4000 did not do so well. So yes, two power switches, and that's because the CPC machines they had this kind of foible where they were expected to be powered using a monitor. And so the power and the video would all come from the monitor and go into here, or into a CPC machine. And this was set up to do the same. So this power socket here and this video socket here are designed to be powered using the CPC and other home computer range monitors. So that's a 5-volt socket and a video socket there. This here was the one that's designed to use an external power supply, and that was a slightly ropey 11-volt job. And yeah, this is one of the huge factors of the GX4000. And in a special important note, if you ever buy one, do not use the power supply that comes with it. It is awful. There's a huge problem with these where if you have the power supply plugged in, you put it into the socket or take it out of the socket when it's on, then it will blow up something inside your GX4000. If you're lucky, it will be a resistor or something, or a voltage regulator. If you're unlucky, it will be something more harder to replace. So yeah, that's not bad. You can just use a decent universal 9-volt center positive AC adapter, and that will power it fine. Though still, yeah, don't remove it or put it in when it's on. You shouldn't do that anyway, to be fair. Yeah, so a SCART socket, because SCART was kind of where we were going at the point. And I don't know what this switch does, actually. I never looked it up. I think it's probably just a signal switch or something. Possibly for this, or possibly to switch this between CCAM and a normal SCART. Who knows? It doesn't matter. I'll probably put a description on there. And this is an RF jack if you want to use the worst possible picture quality. So yeah, I mean, I really like it. I really do like it. It's at the bottom there. See the all the details of it. Nice Amstrad label there. Yeah, I genuinely like this machine. I really do. It's in terms of styling, certainly. Yeah, I think it just looks nice. Right, so I guess then we get to something that we've glossed over a little bit up to now, and why did this fail? Right, so there are quite a few reasons. I guess a primary one is that this was very, very capable of competing with third generation consoles, so the NES and the Master System. You'll see later on when we play some games, it's a powerful enough machine definitely to compete with those. Unfortunately, when this was released in 1990, the advertising for the next generation of consoles, the 16-bit era, was already in full swing. The Mega Drive was released about the same time as this. And nobody wanted an 8-bit console anymore. If you look at how many this sold, as in the official sales figures, you can see that people were looking at this as being a budget model. If they couldn't afford a Mega Drive and they weren't willing to wait or couldn't afford a Super Nintendo, then yeah, they got this, which wasn't great. Wasn't great at all. And there's a few, like, one of its target audiences would have been like people that had the home computers, especially Amstrad home computers, because like similar games on a home console, it would have been an ideal upgrade path. Unfortunately, that was also one of the huge problems with it as well. So when you look at it and you look at the games for those home computers that people already owned, would have been between £3 and £4. And then those almost exact same games, like with barely any improvements, would have been £20 to £30 to buy on this. With no benefit of buying them on this other than the loading speed. and that was not going to be a seller for this system. Absolutely not. And that would have been one of the key demographics for Amstrad to push to. The other reasons are Amstrad just lacked the money required to defeat Sega and Nintendo in the market. Sega and Nintendo could just fire off advert after advert and pay for huge advertising campaigns. Amstrad simply couldn't do that. And so this just got missed by a lot of people. It turned up in shops, but it didn't get much of a fanfare. And people were looking forward to those 16-bit consoles because of the amount of the advertising blitz that was happening for them. Amstrad were solely responsible for making the cartridges for this as well, for manufacturing. They did shop around the idea of allowing other people to make cartridges, kind of similar to what eventually Electronic Arts would get with the Mega Drive. But as far as we're aware, nobody took them up on that. It certainly didn't seem to happen anyway. And so with Amstrad being the only source of cartridges, publishers just weren't getting those cartridges fast enough, and so they weren't getting into shops in key times, and so they were missing key release dates. So that again didn't help them with the publishers, didn't help them with the public. And that leads up to the last one, which we touched on with the power socket. And this had a few design flaws, which resulted in quite a few returns, like the power socket blowing up the machine. Eventual models had little instruction booklets in it saying, don't, make sure it's plugged in before you turn it on and off. That's, but it was kind of too little too late. These would go back to Amstrad, and people would get a return one, but by that point, again, they've lost faith, and they're going for machines that were basically bulletproof comparatively, the Mega Drive and later on the SNES. So, yeah, it is unfortunate. And when you look at some of the kind of the rumours that came out of Amstrad at that time, this was very nearly a 16-bit console. And that could have been brilliant. I mean, once again, when we look at the games, you'll see it could definitely have competed with those 8-bit consoles. A 16-bit version might have done a really, really good job with Amstrad able to make consoles slightly cheaper. It could have been good, but yeah, that obviously never came to pass. And instead we got what was effectively an Amstrad Plus computer in a console shell. Which never seems to work too well. We will obviously be covering the Commodore game system possibly next week. But yeah, it's a shame. It really is a shame. I think it's a fantastic little console. But you know what? The only way you can tell that of a console is by looking at the games, which we're going to do now. And here we are with some games. And yeah, we're using the C4 CPC cartridge to play these games. Now, normally I wouldn't bother showing this, obviously. I just go into games. But yeah, there's a few things that I kind of want to show before we go into them. So if we go back onto this and we go to this whole thing's weird. Don't worry about it. But if we go here, we can see that, there are numerous games that aren't GX4000 games. So there are some ports here of games. Not all of them work, to be honest, but some do. So these are games that wouldn't have been available, but have been hacked to work with the GX4000. I wouldn't imagine it would take a lot of hacking, to be honest. But there are some classic games like Afweide Monty. So if we go into that. And we can see it's got a trainer on there, but also a trainer that's geared towards the 2 buttons on the joystick. So if we push 2 for no, then we can skip those. Alright, and there we go. It says press space 5, but we could just hit the first button and it'll go. And there we are. So I mean, the Afweide Monty on the Amstrad was quite a nice looking game anyway. So it's not. No, there we go. But it's a nice addition, and it just shows nowadays that they didn't release many games for this, but there are now more options. But anyway, we're not really here to play Monty. We're here to play games that actually came out for the GX4000. So here we are with Barbarian 2. And so this main menu thing here, we get to choose between Warrior and Princess, and those buttons, those numbers actually obviously match up to the buttons 1 and 2. So let's choose the Warrior, number 1. And so all of the tape loading stuff and everything has been skipped out. We can't obviously do keyboard, but it's set to joystick automatically, so we need to push 1 to start. These cartridges obviously were also compatible with the, I've managed to turn myself around, that's not good. This game, turn back, damn it. Turn back! No, just turn back. So these cartridges would also work with the Plus consoles, the Plus computers as well. And so some of the cartridges did have keyboard options, but it did know to default to a joystick, which is good. It's a pretty game as well. I mean, this is easily rivaling what the the Master System and the NES could do, it would certainly have competed well. Right, you've got, yeah, okay, now I've worked out. You've got to push fire and then down. It's got 2 buttons, but it doesn't really use it in this game. Right, but yeah, the pause button, there you go, just hits pause. So there we are. Let's go to a different game. Right, so this is the pack-in title, Burning Rubber, also considered one of the best games on it. And yeah, it's pretty good, it's not bad. One of the things that annoys me about this game is, if we just start now as default, then you have to push up to accelerate. On a 2-button joystick, a joypad, and it knew there were going to be 2 buttons because obviously, you know, it's running on the GX4000. And yeah, again, it could have been on the computer, but they know that you're using a GX4000 because they've changed some of the options, so they could have changed the default key and about as well. But argument aside, you can just push 2 and set the controls, so 1 to set controls. And so we can just change, like gear down can be down, gear up can be up, accelerate 1, brake 2. And then, yeah, left and right obviously just being left and right. So yeah, so now if we start, we've got a much more sensible control scheme. And this looks really nice. I mean, compare it to some of the racing games on the 8-bit systems, and this is really good. So yeah, nice big sprites. There's a decent feeling of speed. It's not impossible to play. It reacts quite well. The joypad isn't the greatest, mind you, but you know, I've played worse. So yeah, it's really nice. The sound's good. The graphics look good. It runs at a fair speed. So yeah, it would have competed quite well. And one of the really upsetting things is one of the games that was planned to be released on this was Outrun, and it would have been really interesting to see how well Outrun had done on this on the GX4000, but it was cancelled again due to publishers losing faith. But no, a nice game, and you can definitely look at that. That is very Outrun, and you can see why it's considered one of the best games. Right, one more game then. Right, so this is Switchblade. Not a game I'm particularly fond of, I'll be honest. I just find it quite dull, but it is thought of quite highly, and technically it's certainly impressive. Yeah, so a bit of a intro sequence. Right, and here we are. So yeah, we got 2-button control, which is good. So jumping on the second button and then attacking with a bar at the bottom. You can see there, you hold it down on the left button. And yeah, it's not as colourful as some games perhaps, but it does move really quick. And sound and music, so you know. Here we go. We killed it. Yeah, I don't find it particularly an interesting game, that's all. But it's good enough. It's pretty good compared to 8-bit machines, but yeah, if you try and compare this to 16-bit machines, then it does start to pale then, but honestly, it's fine. Oops, a bit of full damage. Hold down our attacks. But yeah, it's pretty enough. It moves quickly. It's got a decent use of colour, really, and it's got nice sound and music, so you know. Yeah, look at that animation on that guy. It's pretty good. Also, very colourful, that guy. So why is... Never mind. Why is Switchblade not colourful when he is? Yeah, some of them look like walls and they're not. Anyway, I'm not particularly fond of this game, but it is a nice enough game, certainly. You know, we'll let ourselves get ourselves kicked there. Oh, by the way, the switch on the back, I will put it on a little comment as well. The switch is to select the sound source, so if you're using the monitor, I'm assuming, you can switch it to use the headphone socket at the front to put the sound through, or just if you want to use the headphone socket at the front, I guess. But yeah, anyway. Well, the GX4000, it's a much maligned machine. I think probably mostly by people that haven't really played it. The games that came with it are okay. There's some decent enough games, not enough of them. But now that a lot of other games have been ported to it, it's quite a nice way of playing Amstrad games. And there were some very, very good Amstrad games that are now available on this machine. And I like it, I really do. Ignoring all of its flaws, which yes, there are a few of them, it's a nice machine. And it looks nice, and some of the games it's got do play very, very well. Anyway, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please hit like. If you really enjoyed the video, please hit subscribe. If you didn't enjoy the video or you have something else to say, then please leave it in the comments below. See you next time.